The deck of the giant ship Odyssey was silent for a moment, save for the creaking of ropes and the crash of distant waves. The storm had subsided, but the air still hung thick with tension. On the massive, rusted hull, 2 bluefin tuna mother and child lay motionless, their enormous bodies sprawled across the ship's vast deck. The mother, a titan of the ocean, was twice the size of her baby, but both were battered and broken, their sleek, powerful bodies now defiled by an army of parasites. Barnacles clung to their scales like armor, while snails and clams embedded themselves deep into their flesh. The once graceful movements of the bluefin had slowed to a painful crawl, each stroke of their muscular tails an effort to push through the suffocating burden of the infestation. Only their eyes and mouths remained exposed, filled with silent agony as the weight of the parasites pulled them deeper into despair. The sailors of the Odyssey, seasoned and hardened by years on the unforgiving sea, watched in stunned silence. They had seen many creatures come and go, but never had they witnessed such a sight two of the ocean's most magnificent predators, humbled by pain and parasites. Their once pristine blue bodies now lay like marred statues, helpless under the stormy sky. Captain Elliot Gray, the weathered leader of the ship, stood at the edge of the deck, his gaze fixed on the tuna, his heart clenched at the sight. He had fought storms, faced pirates, and encountered deadly creatures on his voyages, but never had he felt the sting of helplessness quite like this. "These creatures are in pain," Captain Gray muttered to himself. His voice was low, almost a whisper, but it carried across the deck. "We can't just leave them like this." The crew, though accustomed to the harsh realities of the sea, shared a similar unease. The tuna were powerful, majestic symbols of the ocean's untamed spirit. Yet now, they were nothing more than victims, stripped of their pride and left vulnerable by the parasites. Without hesitation, Captain Gray barked orders to his crew. "Get the ropes! Prepare the tools! We're going to help them!" The sailors rushed into action, gathering knives, scrapers, and broom stools meant to remove the parasites that had overtaken the fish's bodies. As they moved closer, the tension in the air thickened, as if the very sea was holding its breath. The tuna lay still, but the gleam of their eyes told a different story. They were aware. They were listening. The crew worked with care and precision, their hands steady despite the storm still churning in the distance. They began to scrape the barnacles from the bluefin scales, their tools gliding along the rough skin, dislodging the parasites one by one. But the work was slow. The barnacles had fused with the tuna's skin, their grip like iron, and each scrape seemed to come at a cost. The tuna twitched, their bodies jerking with the discomfort of each cut. The mother thrashed, her pain evident, but her baby remained still, as though trusting the sailors, its eyes locked on them with quiet desperation. The crew didn't stop, working tirelessly to remove each parasitic creature. The ship's deck became a battlefield of sorts, with soap suds and water flying in all directions as the sailors struggled to free the fish from the grasp of the sea's parasites. Hours passed, and at long last, the work was done. The last barnacle was scraped away, the final snail removed. The mother and baby tuna, exhausted but finally free from their torment, lay still on the deck, their bodies still but their eyes filled with silent gratitude. The sailors stepped back, wiping sweat from their brows, their hearts heavy with the weight of what they had done. They had saved the tuna, but the cost had been high. The deck was littered with the remnants of parasitic small shells and broken barnacles scattered across the wood. Captain Gray stood at the bow, his eyes focused on the horizon. But then, something caught his eye. The tuna, both mother and baby, began to move. Slowly at first, then with growing strength. They pushed themselves to their fins and, as if sensing their newfound freedom, surged forward into the open ocean. The crew watched, awestruck, as the 2 giant bluefin tuna swam alongside the ship, their bodies moving with a newfound grace. The storm had passed, but their bond with the sailors remained, a silent promise between predator and protector. As the ship sailed on, the mother and baby bluefin tuna raced ahead, their tails cutting through the water with the force of a storm. The crew cheered, their spirits lifted by the sight. It was as if the ocean itself had granted them this moment of grace, a reward for their efforts.